Welcome to Habs Unfiltered, episode 237. I'm your host, Blaine Pudvang, and I'm joined now by my co-hosts, Matt Smith.
Even.
And Treg Wilson.
Hello.
So since our last episode, a little bit has gone on. So it seems hell has frozen over, and the Canadians are actually on a win streak. What the hell?
I told you they were going to win 15 games at a Martin St. Louis. You only need 12 more in 31 games.
It's still a bit of a stretch, but
it definitely shows that they needed a new voice behind the bench, or at least some fresh air. You know,
sounds like it sounds like they did. But before we jump into talking about the last couple of games, we have an update on Armia and Dvorak. So according to Jonathan Bernier of the Journal de Montréal, the Canadians have said both Dvorak and Armia are more serious than just day-to-day, but they're not exactly long-term either. Armia still has swelling after taking a skate boot to the face. And Dvorak has stopped skating to focus on his treatment. But they're saying it's not really a setback, but to me, that sounds like it is. Now, Ducharme, before he was fired, stated that Dvorak had been medically cleared and given the green light by the doctors. He never was. So he's never been taken off the IR. So that's a little bit of a miscommunication. That's been cleared up. So he is still on the IR. He is a little bit more than day-to-day, probably week to week is my guess for these two guys. And that's where we are with them. Now, on to the last couple of games. The Canadians are on a 3-game win streak. They beat the Islanders for their second win in a row. They won that 3-2 in a shootout. And then they beat, well, a beat is a term, more dominated, like a dominatrix in an Amsterdam brothel. They dominated the Leafs 5-2. So let's start with the Islanders game. Matt, what were your thoughts on the outcomes from that game?
For me, it was the performance of Andrew Hammond. That was the biggest standout. I thought that he played great for a guy that hasn't played in the league for 4 years, and felt incredible for the guy. 1.85 goals against with a 938 save in your first game back is, especially with a, we'll call it a fragile team in the Canadians right now. But as it was said in the opening, they're definitely growing and getting better. But yeah, I felt fantastic for the guy, and I thought he played a fantastic game. Overall, the game itself, that top line of Suzuki, Caulfield, and Anderson, they played a great game. And it showed even more in the Leafs game. But the big things for me are the I'm going to say the kind of the new look team right now under St. Louis, and the players that are really starting to flourish under his command. Guys like Petrie, who picked up a goal, Anderson, who picked up another goal and then picked up a few against the Leafs, Caulfield with the successful shootout attempt, and then Pitlick for, a guy that I did not pick to go in the shootout to make an aggressive move like that and pick up the winner. We're seeing a team now that's competing a hell of a lot more. Either team could have won that overtime. And we're seeing a team that's not playing just defense and, we got the point. Let's play defensive hockey until we possibly get to a shootout. They're starting to play with a little bit more focus and a little bit more determination. And I think it's going to bode well for this team going forward.
St. Louis has basically taken on the same thinking process when it comes to overtime as his former coach, John Tortorella, the safe as death mentality. So he's going out with guys that he knows can skate and shoot. He's not He's not playing it safe like Ducharme or Julian did. Yeah. Putting out defensive specialists. He's putting out guys that can move.
But the thing is, we still saw Sherratt in the game, and I believe that's a little bit more. And the last 2 games, I believe Sherratt's looked. He's looked pretty good.
He's getting showcased hard,
and he's definitely getting showcased. And I think that was the reason why, to say this is what he can do. This is what he can bring to the table, especially since he's playing on the right side as a natural, as a left-handed shot, right?
I think St. Louis in the Islanders game anyway, St. Louis did exactly what everyone wanted Ducharme to do when he took over for Julian, as that quit and especially in overtimes, quit playing it safe. You already have the point. Why are you trying to save the point? Like it's, you're playing like it's near the end of a game. You're trying to get it to overtime while already in overtime. Yeah. And to do it that way is just ridiculous. Like you're either going to win or lose. You have the point. You might as well go for the win. The worst that's going to happen is you just don't get the extra point. What I really like about Martin St. Louis, and it goes back to how well Andrew Hammond played, is the way the defense is attacking the forwards and the offense. They're not giving them the time and space to make the proper moves, to make the right passes. You're seeing less cross-crease passes. You're seeing less,
high danger chances, right?
High danger chances in the slot, because they don't have time, and they're rushing their passes and they're rushing their shots. I'm not downplaying what Hammond did. Hammond had an excellent game, but a lot of the shots they lower the high danger shots coming from the slot, and it's helping Montembeault, and they've been doing that since St. Louis kind of took over. They're just St. Louis had said we can't put everything together and say we got to change this, and this. So we're focusing on one thing at a time. And as we progress, all those things will come together. And
he's really simplified their game plan on the defensive side specifically.
It's like coaching a peewee team.
It's identical to that.
I'm going to teach you how to do this.
Yeah.
And then the next game, that's what you're going to do. We're not going to worry about the other stuff. Don't worry about that. We'll figure that out as it comes along, but we're going to worry about this. And sometimes that's what you got to do, even at the NHL levels. Just simplify things. Just put it down there.
And we've seen what's happened with the goaltending and how Hammond played, and now how Montembeault's looked in his last 2 starts with a win against the Blues and now a win against the Leafs.
Yeah, the simple fact that Montembeault looks more at ease physically, because he was playing hurt for a little while. So now it looks like he's kind of settled down. Hammond coming in means that they're not relying on Primo, who was clearly out of his element and just could not handle the NHL game yet. He's not ready yet. And to put him into that situation was doing him a disservice and not helping the team whatsoever. So you got goalies who are not making saves. Then you're down 2, 3, 4 goals in the first period. There's no way you're coming back. And of course, the team crumbles after that. Now, the goalies are making those key saves. You're only down a goal, maybe still tied, maybe even up. I mean, the last 2 games, the Canadians have scored first. So it's a massive, massive departure from what they had prior to St. Louis' arrival.
Absolutely.
And not just that, is if you go back even to their first win under St. Louis, the overtime win, if it wasn't for the extra effort that everyone's putting in for the full 60, the Gallagher stopping the empty net goal, and then Caulfield go down and score it. If you didn't really see that near the end of a game under Ducharme, and I'm not saying, Gallagher probably still would have done that if he had the chance, but you're just not seeing the effort. You're not seeing a 60-minute effort you didn't see a 60-minute effort under Ducharme, but under St. Louis, it seems like everyone they want to win the game for him. Like and look at Romanov. Romanov's now not afraid to mess up. Like he's not, he looks a little bit more relaxed on the ice. I don't think he's playing super great, but you know what I mean? He's more relaxed. He's doing his thing, and and he's just going to improve the more he learns. But Romanov's it's probably a bad example, because I don't think his play the last few games has been.
It hasn't been that bad though.
But
he's made a couple of errors, but he's been able to rectify them.
Yeah, Kyle Clegg's been terrible, but
that's a whole other story.
But Romanov is, and the younger guys like Caulfield, he's up in the first line now. I mean, we might as well get into the Toronto game. I think that's where we're going next.
Yeah, we're going to step to the Toronto game here. We'll talk about lines and stuff a little bit after, but we'll just discuss the game itself. So the Leafs, the Canadiens are playing the second of a back-to-back. They traveled from New York back to Montreal to meet up with a rested Toronto team. And Sheldon Keefe, before the game, even said, this was a revenge game. There's still 11 guys on that team that eliminated us last year in the playoffs. So that's their motivation. And then they come in and do what? They get spanked. It's I don't know. It's not like the Canadiens were, just suddenly turned into the Harlem Globetrotters here. The Leafs played like hell. Marner showed up, but he couldn't produce. Sound familiar? Spezza showed up. He was actually trying, but he couldn't produce. But he got an assist though. And then there's Matthews, who was completely invisible unless he was getting his pocket picked on the blue line, which happened 3 freaking times. So that team is so broken and lacks spine. There is no way that team as it is going to be a threat. It just can't be.
Especially if you, go ahead, Matt.
If they've got to play, say, Tampa or Florida in the first round, done.
They just got killed by the 32nd place team.
Especially if you have a guy like Muzzin that's going to be out long term.
Yeah. That's the big part right there.
Yeah. However, if it's an LTIR situation, then we're not going to get too deep into this. If he gets thrown an LTIR with the trade deadline coming up, they might be able to use it to throw that around.
Yeah, but who are they going to get in the playoffs to replace the grit of Muzzin?
Sherratt.
I don't think they're in on short. They got that Russian guy.
They got Labushkin, yeah. I think they're going to go after Braun. To be honest, I think they're going to take a look at Braun out of the Flyers.
Whoever they get, they need to get someone with some grit, some spine, because they lack that jam in their game.
But they need more than one person with grit and spine. That's going to change.
Yes, that's true.
And they need someone that can play on the top 4 or the top 2 lines with grit and spine, and not like a Wayne Simmons who plays on the 4th line and only comes out.
Nick Foligno, he would have taken out Weidman last night for Muzzin falling into him.
He would have asked him at the face-off if he wanted to go. That's what he would have done.
Yeah. I'm not trying to make a joke there, but I honestly hope Muzzin's okay, of course.
Yeah, that's the thing. We do hope he is going to recover quickly. But that brings me to Spezza and his need to step up to defend 6'4" Justin Hall from Nick Suzuki.
Yeah. And they both grabbed onto him. That's the thing. And
you notice when Spezza was grabbing him, he was looking over his shoulder to see, oh shit, is Anderson coming? And as soon as Anderson showed up, whoop, hands off.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the key to, and you said we're going to get lines later, but that's the key to that line is Anderson's giving Suzuki and Caulfield so much space to move around that is actually creating more space for Anderson, as we saw last night.
Yeah, when he skated in for that second goal, absolutely.
Because Caulfield is controlling the play in the offensive zone. Like he looks like what he did in Wisconsin. Like he just gets in there and he's like, all right, I got the puck. I'll just skate around to one of you two get open and I'll give it to you. And then you can either give it back to me and I'll score, or you guys will score. I mean, Anderson could have easily had 4 goals. One, he was robbed by a beautiful
that was a nice save.
That glove save was impressive.
Yeah, and then the other one, they went on the 3-on-1, but Muzzin got hurt, so they blew the play down, which to me is perfectly fine. I had no issue with that ref call. Well, some people on Twitter were upset because the Montreal breakup, but it's an injured player. And
the guy's out cold. With his eyes open and he's blowing bubbles, for God's sakes. You gotta call that. You have to. It's not a playoff game. Let's not get overzealous. But I want to mention you mentioned Caulfield and how he's looking like he did in Wisconsin. That's the beauty of St. Louis' basic plan, his so-called, the quote unquote concepts. He's allowing the players to play to their strengths, to play their styles, what they know, the things that got them to the NHL, to play in those ways. And that's why we're seeing Caulfield start to really blossom now under St. Louis versus Ducharme, because St. Louis is allowing him that creative license.
Yeah, exactly. And then he put Anderson and Suzuki with him. Now, in all honesty, right now, Suzuki's just kind of the third guy on the line,
which is impressive to say, considering how well he's been doing.
Correct. And, he hasn't really gotten a lot of points. I think he got 1 assist last night.
Yeah. He should have had a couple more for sure.
Yeah. But the way Anderson's just freeing up the space for Caulfield, who's dragging a couple players with him, which is frees up Anderson on the other side. He's just passing the puck over, or Anderson. And I mean, what a 3 beautiful shots by the two of them on all their goal. Well, I mean, Caulfield's going, I'm not sure where Marzik was kind of going there.
He expected him to go short side, but then he placed it far side.
And then he was still sliding over in the corner by the time it went into the net. But then, but it's just been great. And Huffman had a beautiful goal too that just went over on the far side, over on his shoulder. So
if there was one goal that Mrazek would have wanted back,
it was that one. Yeah. But I mean, I'm just so impressed with how, win or lose, I say 15 games, but it's probably going to be closer to your 9, maybe 10 or 12. But I say 15 to be on the happy side. And anyone worrying about them falling out of the top 5, they pretty much got to play 700 to get into the 6th last place, and they're not going to play 700.
Let's just keep in mind that the team right now is at a 255 point percentage. If they go 500 the rest of the way, they got 31 more games. If they go 500 in those 31 games, meaning they get 16 points, so it's a little over 500. They get 6, which is 8 wins. They get 8 more wins. They're still at worst in 30th place.
For 31 games, they'd have to get about 15 wins.
We're looking at a top 5 pick regardless.
Yeah.
And
but still, even with 15 wins, you're only getting 58 points.
A lot of people are talking about that the draft falls off after Shane Wright. I don't believe that. I think there's some skill there, and I believe that whoever they end up choosing in the draft, whether it's number 1 or number 5 or whatever it is, I think they're going to do very well.
The top 5 in this draft is going to be a game changer. Anyone you pick,
Logan Cooley, Slakowski.
Yeah.
I mean, Nikach,
Kimmel.
I mean, all types of players that the Canadians desperately need in their system. So it's not really going to be an issue if they finish in the top 5.
And then you only have a 21% chance of winning the lotto at last place anyway. So, I mean, and only 7 teams who finished last have won the lotto since 2006.
Yeah. The thing for me right now is I know a lot of people want the Canadians to continue losing to get that best opportunity to get the number 1 pick, because obviously Shane Wright's going to be the guy that's going to go number 1. However, if we're looking at a rebuild or aggressive retool, whatever we want to call it right now, especially if they want to keep St. Louis behind the bench, you want to continue to play for your coach. You want to continue to play hard. And if they do bring this young guy into the lineup, let's just say that it's Shane Wright. Well, you want that player to be able to jump into a team that's already established a little bit of a winning mentality under that coach, that's seen some positivity, and then it's not just kind of limp into a new season. You want to kind of build that up, and then now we've got this shiny new player.
Yeah.
I don't want to see a team just tank just to get the number 1 pick. And we were all at the draft together in Buffalo when Matthews was drafted, and there were people with signs, embrace the tank and this and that and whatever else. And if Montreal is to get the number 1 pick, it is what it is. They didn't tank to do so. They did not, it's not like they didn't put out players to play the games. There was injuries, there was COVID, there was this. I'm not trying to make excuses, but they didn't just say, well, we're just going to field an AHL team because we have to.
They're not embracing losing.
No.
That's the difference between what the Canadians are doing now with St. Louis versus what Toronto did. Now, Toronto is pointed to as a successful rebuild, but I'm going to ask, what has Casper the Ghost, what has Matthews done in the playoffs? Nothing. I call him Casper because he's invisible in the playoffs. Okay. You don't want a team that embraces losing. You want a team that demands winning, at the very least demands a full effort. And when he walked into their system, they weren't at that point yet. So that wasn't forced on him right away.
That's right.
He was just given this superstar, rock star status without having done much of anything. I mean, he is an insanely talented player.
Yes.
But there's that little bit that you need in the playoffs for the success. So which would you rather have? The first overall pick with an insanely talented player, or a team that's actually won some playoff series in the last, 18 years?
I'd rather the playoff series, but Leaf fans will say if you're not winning the cup, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, sure. But you got to learn to win before you can actually get to that cup. And that's why I'm not upset that the Canadians have gone this way to bring in St. Louis, to bring in this some accountability and to try and wake the team up, and mostly for the development of the players.
Yeah. What I like too is Gordon and Hughes have said we're not playing to finish last next season. That's not our goal. And they said we're not trading this person unless we get the offer we want. We're not trading that person unless we get in other words, they're saying we're not saying we're going to trade anybody. Like a Sherratt's probably a given just because they don't want to lose him for nothing. So, UFAs are a given, but you take a guy like Lehkonen and Petrie, who've been on the trade market, Dvorak, Anderson, Druin, they're not going to trade these players unless they get the offer they want. And from what it seems to me is this is what we want. And now their team's like, well, I don't want to give that up for that guy. And they're like, oh, well, see you later.
Cool.
Have a nice day. Cool.
Because St. Louis right now is going on about Anderson and how important he is.
I don't think Anderson's on the block. I don't think
he is either. I don't think he is.
They're taking calls. And like you said, they have a price that they have set.
Yeah. You're going to take calls on everyone. Every GM's going to do that regardless. But I think Anderson's a bit, they even said in the thing that they really like him. They would like to, he's the type of player they would like, and he's the type of player they want. Big, fast, mobile.
It's been years that they've been looking for a player like that. They finally went out and got one.
I'm not saying they won't trade him, but what I'm saying is like what you had mentioned, Treg, if they have a price.
If they get what they want in their price, and I'm fine with that. If the price, they get exactly what they want in their price, and it's, good for the team, which I'm assuming.
I'm guessing it would be insanely high.
Correct. Then, if they trade him and get, I don't know, Draisaitl or something. I'm just, you're not going to say high. No. That you're not going to say no to that. I mean, that's a bit high. That's a bad example, but you know what I mean.
But no, as an example, that's kind of the thing, right?
Yeah.
But if you look at what Gorton has done in the past with the Rangers, Chris Kreider, perfectly the same type of player. Mm-hmm. Instead of trading him away when they decided to rebuild, he signed into a long-term deal. So he knows that type of player is important for a team to have some success because they're hard to find.
Well, it's not. The NHL shifted away from the power forward for a little bit, and then now they're like, oh no, we need this type of guy, and
they're rare.
And Chris Kreider has the exact same amount of goals as Austin Matthews does this year. So
for half the price.
Yeah. Someone saying on Twitter yesterday was saying Matthews is going to win all the awards this year, but
I don't know. I think he's in tough on the Vezina.
Yeah.
The Norris is a lock, just from what I seen last night.
Well, just that back check where he did not move his feet whatsoever That's Petrie levels right there.
Strong Selke candidate, Austin Matthews.
Speaking of Petrie, though,
Yes,
he's been a hell of a lot better under St. Louis. He's the system, as we talked about, the defensive system has been a lot more simplified, and over the last 4 games, got 2 goals and 3 assists.
now I don't know if someone if he just started to play better because he's like, oh, a new coach, I want to impress him, or if someone in his camp said, hey, listen, you're playing like absolute trash. If you really want to get traded, you gotta play.
Oh, he's definitely up in his value.
I'm going to throw another conspiracy theory in there. I think him and Ducharme just didn't get along. And
well, that could be it too.
Didn't listen to Ducharme. That's honest, because he's night and day since Martin St. Louis took over. Like it was almost like a switch. I mean, it could be what you say. Someone saying, "Hey, you're playing like shit," but everyone's already been saying no one's going to look at this season. The team's terrible. Now, if the team was in a playoff race and he was playing this shit, then yes, they would be like, oh, well, I don't know. This team's playing pretty good and you're not. But the whole team's playing terrible. I mean, the highest goal, Anderson has 11 goals, which leads the team. And I think he's like 217th in goal. You know what I mean? Like it's there's nobody.
It's historically bad.
Suzuki has 30 points and he leads the team in points. And, it's historically bad. But his play under St. Louis, it's just night and day to what it was with Ducharme. I mean, he's still the same defensively. Let's be honest, Petrie was never. He wasn't
really a Norris candidate.
No, he never was. He was a Paul Coffey for the Coffey Trophy. He was a candidate for that because he was scoring points.
He's the kind of guy that really thrives as a number 3, but just cannot shoulder the burden of a number 1.
No.
He was a good number 2 with Weber. Especially when he was playing with Edmondson, because he had somebody to play the defensive role.
But I look at him as a number 3 when you say that, because I take the 2 guys in the top 2 lines as 1 and 2. That's just the way I look at it.
Yeah.
So Weber with whoever,
second pair.
Yeah. But
because he's not up against the top guys every time. It's just every other shift.
Yeah.
And that makes a difference. It really does.
It does. I mean, who's he? Oh, Kulak.
Yeah.
There's another guy getting traded.
I can see it.
Absolutely.
I can see
absolutely
it.
On.
Sherratt, Kulak, and Lehkonen for all the Rangers prospects and picks.
Every single one.
Every single one.
You heard it here first. Before we get to the rumors and stuff, we'll get into that a little bit. I wanted to talk a little bit about Rem Pitlick.
Yeah.
Now, Treg, you made a very good post on Twitter last night after the game, talking about the Calder Trophy and where the guys are in points. And you pointed out Rem Pitlick is 10th in rookie points.
That's after last night's game, after he scored his goal. Yeah, he's 10th in rookie points. Mind you, he has 20 points, or I have to look it up. What does Rem Pitlick have?
He's got
points.
19
he has 18.
Points.
Yeah, 19 points, and the leader has 30. He's 20 points behind.
But still, he's 10th.
Still. I didn't think Rem was a rookie. I thought he was a rookie last year. So I didn't realize that he had played that low amount of games, because he's played with Minnesota the past 2 seasons. He just didn't play 25 games. So,
but technically,
so he's still a rookie. And
he was just a waiver pickup. It cost him nothing.
A waiver pickup. Cost him nothing. He had 8 goals when he came to Montreal. I think he came to Montreal tied in the lead in goals, or second in goals or something when he got there. I like the kid. I don't think he's I think he's a fringe top 6 guy. I think he's a third line guy at best. But
I think he excels on a 4th, but he could play on a 3rd.
Yeah, but the move he put on Sorokin in the shootout was he's still looking for his jock strap up. He did the Charlie Lindgren, looking for his jock strap up in the stands there.
And then he tried the exact same move against Toronto on the breakaway there, and just lost his footing and ran into the goalie.
Yeah, and I like him. Good for him. I like the way he talks in his interviews. He's very articulate. and he's looking good. I was surprised when I was just looking up Caulfield to see where he was at because of his 8 points in 6 games. I'm like, where would he be at in the Calder race here? Like, how far behind are we? And, you know, the Detroit guy there's
Lucas Raymond.
Lucas Raymond's got 39. Then I'm like, oh, wait a minute. All right, let me add tonight's 3 points up. Oh, he's 14th. I'm like, Rem Pitlick, 10th. What?
How the hell?
So, Rem Pitlick for Calder. Calder, you heard it here first.
He's going to edge Bunting out for votes.
Bunting a rookie?
Yeah.
Really? No, I thought it was just.
You haven't seen it on Twitter? All the Leafs fans just constantly spouting off.
I mean, he plays with Matthews and Marner. I would get probably 20 points in a season playing with Matthews and Marner.
Hey, man, Rem Pitlick's playing on the 32nd place team, and he's 10th. So that counts for something.
On the third line.
But in all seriousness, though, I think this is probably a very good waiver pickup and someone that's going to play for the next few years. And I honestly feel that him playing in the bottom 6 moving forward kind of opens things up for the Canadians to do other moves. And this is where we're going to move to the rumors section. It opens them up to the possibility of moving Lehkonen. Because you have Armia, you have Pitlick, Ylönen's on his way up. You have options. So now you have this soon to be RFA and you have needs elsewhere in your lineup. He's got a high value.
You got Paul Byron back too. So
that's right.
And Paul Byron's faster than he is and has better hands. And that's nothing. I'm not shooting down Lehkonen here. I think Lehkonen's probably one of the better. Actually, I said in my rumors article, he's probably one of the better two-way wingers in the league, defensive wingers in the league. And there's people calling for him. And I know a lot of people want to keep Lehkonen on the team. They like him, and I don't blame them. I really don't. But he's going to want a longer-term deal. This is his last year of RFA, so he's going to want multiple-year deal, not just a 1-year get me over deal. I don't think it'll be a whole hell of a lot of money, but he's 1.76 now, I think, or 2 something, 2.3. So he's probably going to want around 3.5 maybe.
3.8 like Armia.
Yeah.
Which would be fair.
Which would be fair. So yeah, I'm okay with moving. My thing is Ylönen. I think you need to make a space for Ylönen next year. I think he's getting close to being NHL ready. He has that great one-timer that he has from the Ovechkin spot there. Yeah. And you have a guy like that with a guy like Rem Pitlick playing on the bottom 6. Now you have a little bit with Byron. Now you have a little bit more offense on your bottom 6 with defensive responsibilities. So
he's not.
I have no issue. Yeah, I have no issue moving Lehkonen, and again. If the right deal comes along, I'm pretty sure I think he's going to the Rangers, but if the right deal comes along, he's going.
It's possible. Like I mentioned last week on our show here, Washington has been scouting the Canadians pretty heavily. And I mentioned that perhaps they were willing to pick him up in return for that goaltender, Samsonov, that they were shopping. And it came out yesterday that is indeed the path that it's rumored to be. So I wouldn't be against that. If Price is going to be out long-term and you're not sure what's going to happen, you're not sure about Primo anymore, one or the other, why not? Why not trade him for an up-and-coming goaltender who's 24 and is slated to be a starting goaltender?
And then you got freedom to maybe even deal Allen at the trade deadline and get even more assets.
Or in the summer.
Or in the summer. Yeah. So I think you're going to see a very different Montreal Canadiens team next year. Like, it's going to be very different than what it is. I mean, your defensive core, half of it's going to be gone anyway. So, and I wouldn't be surprised if a guy like Edmondson gets. I think anyone over 30 is going to be close to being gone, if not, except maybe Byron. I think Byron might stick around as that veteran leader.
Maybe because he has
to hit.
Too.
Gallagher, because they have the skill set that the management team likes, the speed, the skill. I mean, Gallagher's speed is not there, but he has the heart, determination, and stuff like that. So unless Gallagher wants out, that'll be a Gallagher thing.
Now, Matt, what do you think about Sherratt's landing spot? Where do you think he's going to end up?
Thinking he's going to either go to the Panthers or the Blues.
What do you think the Canadians will get in return in either one of those deals?
Well, for the Panthers, it would definitely, they don't have a first round pick for this year. So it would be a first for next year, or they'd be looking at a prospect or prospects.
So if you're Hughes and you had to choose between a 2023 first or say a Denisov or an Owen Tippett, which would you pick?
I don't think Tippett's all that what he, that seems to be the one that they're shopping. And I'm really high on Lundell, but definitely Lundell isn't going to be going anywhere. If I was them, I'd be looking at Sorda myself. I'd be looking at Justin Sorda with a pick. That's what I'd be looking at. I wouldn't even be looking at Tippett myself.
Fair. Now with the Blues, I put out a poll on this exact thing. If Sherratt were to be moved to the Blues, because apparently they're heavy in on him, Hughes has mentioned that he would rather get some prospects who are, like D+2 type prospects.
Yeah.
So 2 years past their draft day, at least one, maybe two,
yeah.
But not further over a first, because, you can only have so many picks and he wants to speed up the process.
Yeah.
But with the Blues, they have guys like Neighbors.
I do Neighbors or Bulldog.
Yeah. Now, Perunovic is probably the higher value of the three, but he's a lefty, and the Canadians are kind of stacked on that part in the system.
Yes. Yeah.
So clearly, I would go Neighbors. What about you, Treg?
Neighbors would be the guy I'd go with after. See, the problem with St. Louis is their prospects pool's kind of thin.
Yeah.
Like Neighbors, Baldock are good, but they're not. They're low A class. You know what I mean? Like they're not.
They're safe. They're safe players to say they'll make the NHL, but they're not top line.
No, they're going to make the NHL, but they're not going to make a huge difference to your team. Like they're not going to be like a Shane Wright or that's a bad comparison, but I'm comparing things badly today. But like I say, they're second, third line best will be the best. Is where they're going to end up on an NHL team. So I think if it's St. Louis, you're looking at a pick and a draft pick and a prospect if it's Sherratt.
But not a first. If you're getting one of them, you might get a third.
Yeah.
Or second. I mean, It all depends. I mean, look at Savard. Savard got a haul for.
That depends on who wants to move up.
Depends on who wants to move. And now, I'm with Matt on Florida. I don't like trading Sherratt to Florida because you're going to get stuck with a prospect that they don't want anyway, and not a pick. And I get what Hughes is trying to say, but you also got to be careful that you're not getting that D+2 that's the other team's trying to get rid of because they're not developing the way they should be developing.
That's right. And they also just sent Tippett to the minors.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they are deep on the wings, so I can understand that part. But at the same time, why do they have him? Why are they dangling him? Why aren't they just saying we're looking to get someone?
And that's where I'm getting at with that. Like it's almost like they're saying, someone come take Tippett.
I think for me, what ended up happening is the emergence of Mason Marchment. That's why I think that Tippett's a little bit more
possible,
a little bit more expendable now, because Tippett was supposed to be the guy that was going to come in, be the goal scorer, etc. With the fire red hair and just lighten up everybody, right? But like Mason Marchment, who actually was a Leafs prospect. and played with the Marlies, played a couple games with the Leafs, didn't do much, and now all of a sudden with the Panthers, he's put up 11 goals in 25 games, and this season, he played for them last season as well and put up 2, but you're seeing kind of an emergence of another young player. He's 26, but still young. But I think that he's become expendable, and now seeing that Tippett's been put down in the minors, for me, it just doesn't scream give away our best trade chip if that's going to be the haul.
Exactly.
Now they have that other guy there, Dennison, or what's his name?
Denisov.
Or you're talking about Denisenko?
Denisenko.
Yeah.
I would take him over Tippett if I was making a trade in Florida.
Yeah.
In a heartbeat. But again,
he's another one that's kind of middling as well.
Yeah. But if I'm taking him, I'm also taking a pick of some sort or some other or another B prospect or something, right? I'm not just taking it because I think the asking price for Sherrod is a first and a prospect. That's the high from the rumor mill. That's what they're looking for. And right now, if you match up with St. Louis or Florida, you're either getting a middling B-A level prospect and a non-first, or you're getting a first and a B to C level prospect. So, you know what I mean?
First is next year, not this year.
Well, with Florida it is, but St. Louis you get this year. I prefer getting an extra first because then you can put those 2 firsts together and move up in the draft. That's what I prefer. But who knows? Maybe get a first out of Lehkonen somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm kind of hoping the Rangers want a piece of the action as well, just because guys like Braden Schneider interest me. Mm-hmm. Even Nils Lundqvist, I know he's not as high on their depth chart as Schneider is, but still, they play the type of game that the Canadians need. They right-handed puck-moving defenseman. And I know there's a lot of talk about Kravtsov, but like Elias Anderson, when he was traded to the LA Kings, the asking price in return is essentially a second-round pick. So you could possibly get a Nils Lundqvist and a Kravtsov in return, because that's basically a first and a second.
Well, I mentioned in my article that you could package Sherratt and Lehkonen to the Rangers.
You could.
And get a first Kravtsov and another prospect.
Maybe a Lundqvist or something.
A Lundqvist. And that's kind of who I'm like. I didn't look at Schneider. I think Schneider would be too high for that. But
I would think that that's who they'd be aiming for because Gordon likes him that much.
Yeah. And the only reason I think Kravtsov, I'm almost convinced Kravtsov's going to end up in Montreal, is because Gorton and the Bobrov's the one who scouted him. He's the one who told Gorton. And I'm not saying Kravtsov is, because what was he picked 9th, I think, or something like that. I'm not saying he's going to turn out to be this superstar guy. I don't think I actually don't think he will. I think he's just going to be a mid-level second, third line player. But I think for some reason, I think he's going to end up in Montreal.
I see him. His numbers in the KHL aren't that great. You know, they're not advancing to the levels that they would hope, especially for someone who's going to be needing a new contract. He's just finishing off his ELC and needs a new contract. I see him more of a guy that could kind of hold on in a second line. You know, he's a big guy. He could skate. He's actually a good skater. So that kind of fits the plan that they have. So yeah, I could see it. But if anyone's thinking they're going to get a 25 goal scorer out of this, they're going to be mistaken. I think this guy is at best 20 goals, 50 points kind of guy.
You got to look at the KHL. If they know you're not coming back the next year, they don't really play you either.
True.
That's what they did with Romanov. But they don't need him to be a 25 goal scorer.
No, they just need a little bit more help along the wings, because depending on what they go with in the draft, like whatever their draft plan is, are they going to be drafting a centerman in those first 2 picks? And, you know, you're projecting a couple years down the road when that centerman shows up, does he have the wingers to play with him?
Well, that's interesting too, because you bring up Braden Schneider and we bring up Lundqvist. And if they get one of those right-handed defensemen, and they're picking, then it kind of changes how they're going to draft as well. Because if they're, say, picking fourth, Nemec's probably the guy. If you're picking fourth, you're looking at Nemec.
Or Savoie.
Or Slavoski.
Yeah.
Do you pick?
Slavoski could go second because
he
had a monster Olympics. Yeah.
But let's just say he's sitting there. You're at 3, and you have the choice between Nemec and Slavoski, and you have Schneider in the background. Do you pick the Olympic?
But that's
MVP?
what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you already have Schneider, you don't really look at Nemec anymore. You're like, well, I got my right-handed defenseman. You know what I mean? I don't really need to draft this kid. I got a guy who I can put in the lineup right now with
guys in the system.
With a Logan Mailloux in the system that's probably going to come up the following year, right? Yeah, I'm going for the forward. Now, if you don't get that defenseman coming back, now you got to go, well, all I have is Logan Mailloux coming up on the right side, and he's a year or 2 away. I'm going to need somebody.
Which brings the devil's advocate into this. Best player available. Do you still see Nemec as the best player available, or do you see Slavoski, or do you see Cooley?
If Slavoski's available, I take Slavoski.
I would 100%. Yeah, you don't see a guy with that size and skill that can move. That can move like that. And I know that it wasn't the Olympics with all the NHL players into it.
But he was 17.
But a guy that was 17 years old and led the tournament in goals, like that's saying something. He's got a bright future.
And it's not like he was on the powerhouse team either. He was on Slovakia.
That's right.
Like, even with no NHLers, Slovakia is still pretty low. I mean, they had a better outcome because there were no NHLers there.
And because Slavoski got them there.
That's right. And he earned what he got to be the leading goal scorer in the Olympics, getting the Olympic MVP. He got this team to where they were at 17. So I can see them saying, I've got this right-handed defenseman, and, I'm not 100% sure which one is the better. Am I going to pick Nemec, or am I going to pick the other Slovakian? It's one or the other. And you're like, well, I got a lot of depth on right D, so I'll give that slight edge to the winger.
Well, I think in that case, the winger has more than a slight edge. If Slavoski drops to 4, I think you have to.
Yeah. If that's your debate, that's.
I'm riding the Slavoski's going to go in the top 3 anyway. So
Montreal's not going to be outside the top 3.
No, and that's what I'm saying. Like, if Montreal's taking right if they pick first, guaranteed. Whether Grant hates them or not, they're taken right. And you have to admit, when a draft comes up, the big name that everyone talks all year about going first,
takes a lot to bunch him off.
He's going to go first. I mean, unless he really drops off a cliff, which he kind of did it the first year.
But there's going to be But there's going to be people next year. They're going to dissect the hell out of Connor Bedard's game as well. Even though he'd probably go number 1 in this draft.
Yes. But Bedard never missed a full season either. He went to Europe and played.
That's true. That's true. And a
lot of people missed a whole year.
He did.
And I think that's why it took him a long time to get his game going.
Yeah, and he didn't even finish his first year because COVID shut the season down. Right. That year he had 39 goals, and he was probably going to break McDavid's goal scoring record for a rookie.
Yeah. So, and all of that is to say, I still see him as going number 1, no matter who has that pick. I still see him going number 1 as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, top 3, you take best player available. I don't give a if they finish second, then I go, well, who's better, Cooley or Slavoski there?
It's not as clear cut as it was 2 weeks ago.
But you kind of want that problem. You kind of want, do I want this guy or this guy? Either way, I'm going to work out, but who's going to be the better one?
Which brings us back to the point of St. Louis coming in and providing a little bit of a bump so that these young players that are already in the NHL develop a little bit more. Because whether you finish first or whether you get the first pick or the third pick, You're getting a good player.
Yeah. And then Marco D'Amico. Marco said that when he was talking, he's saying, listen, no matter who you get in the top 5, you're getting an NHL top line player.
And on Marco, I want to congratulate Marco on his new position with Montreal Hockey Now. Congratulations, Marco. I know you've been working towards this, and it's great to see good people get rewarded for their good work. So congratulations. And remember us little guys, you know.
Is this why we never get rewarded for anything?
That's right.
Oh, okay.
I want to say, while we're doing shout outs to McLean's Pub. Stuart Ash, and he posted a picture of Habs head coach Martin St. Louis dropping by McLean's Pub.
Yeah, he had lunch there or something.
Yeah. Shout out to McLean.
Yeah. And while we're talking about McLean's, we will be at the draft in Montreal this year, and on the Saturday following the draft,
maybe not Matt.
Yeah,
maybe not Matt.
We'll see.
We'll Zoom call him in, but okay. The rest of us will be there. We'll be at McLean's Pub with Stuart, hosting a Habs Unfiltered post-draft party. We're inviting everybody to come meet us there. Feel free to come in, buy as much Jameson's and Labatt 50 as you want. We are not helping with that. That's on you. But if you want to buy us some.
You can buy us a beer.
Absolutely.
I may drink that day.
I'm totally drinking that day.
Might. We'll see.
Week. I'm totally drinking that week. We'll see. All right. So I want to finish the show off here with something decent. You were talking about, we only got a few more minutes, but talking about St. Louis again. Do either of you, and I'll start with you, Treg, feel that the interim tag is basically lifted and this is St. Louis' job now?
No. I think he'll be interim to the end of the year, and if he stays on, it'll be like a 1 or 2 year deal.
Okay. Matt?
Not yet. I believe that what's going to happen is they're going to look at the players that have really thrived under him. They're going to look at the people that they bring out, or the people that they traded off and what they brought back during the trade deadline, and see how the team reacts after the deadline, and see if they're actually still playing with pace and still playing with a purpose. And then they're going to reevaluate. And I agree that it'll probably be, I go with it. I'd say a 2-year contract, because I think that for myself, I think that's going to be an attractive deal for St. Louis. I don't know if you would accept the 1-year deal.
No, I don't think so either. I think we're only 6 games into his tenure. The team has looked really good in those 6 games. I don't know if it's just the players wanting to impress their new boss, or if it's something more. But by the end of this regular season, if they continue in the manner they are, I can see the interim tag coming off. I'm tired of hearing the Rod Brindamore comparisons. This is not it. He's not the same kind of coach. He's just a shorter guy that took care of his body. That's really the only comparison.
Rod Brindamore was an assistant coach for 7 years in the NHL.
Exactly.
He kind of knew what he was doing when he got in. Not saying Martin St. Louis doesn't know what he's doing, but
he clearly had a plan in his pocket, ready to go if he ever got the chance to join an NHL team.
He said so himself. He said, I've been sitting down formulating a coaching plan for the past 10 years.
Yeah.
And saying, I think this will work. I think this will work. And I'll tell you right now, there's not a chance in hell that he's not talking to Torts on a weekly, every other day basis, getting advice.
He has a lot of connections, a lot of friends. I am absolutely sure he talks to people that he trusts. If the team continues in the direction that they are now, I would not be surprised to see him get a contract offered to him. Now, let's keep in mind, that doesn't mean he's going to want to stay in Montreal. Maybe another team offers him a contract. You got to remember, he's free agent. So does he want to stay in Montreal and continue with what they're doing? Or does he want to try something different? My guess would be that he wants to stay. If he does well here, he'll want to stay here.
For me, it's the pieces that they brought in. Like he has a history with some of these people that they're bringing in, and who knows who else they're going to bring in the off season, different AGMs. It seems like it's a big one big happy family right now. So if that continues and we see like, you know, Vinny Prospel come in and Brad Richards and Happy Bullen and all that stuff, then, you know, maybe that's what it'll be.
Dave Andrechuk.
There you go.
I got a question for you. This is before we go. If Petrie gets traded, does Caulfield go to number 26?
Absolutely.
I think so.
And they'll have a press conference and St. Louis gives him the jersey.
Oh, that'd be neat. That'd be neat.
I was going to yell something, but you're not allowed to anymore. So I'm just going to say lame instead of the other word I was going to use, but.
Okay, fine. They'll be on step stools so everyone can see.
Well, the good thing about Caulfield is now he can see eye to eye with his coach, so he knows exactly what he's talking about.
But all right. Matt, what about your final thought?
2 years ago today, David Ayres defeated the Toronto Maple Leafs. So shout out to David.
Yeah. Him and his wife are still two of my favorite follows on Twitter. So give them a follow.
Absolutely.
David, mostly because, you know, he's a legend. All right. And I want to thank our special sponsor, Boxing Rock Brewing Company. Their Puck Off Lagered Ale is available at every NSLC. It is delicious. I would recommend going out and buying some. We are still doing giveaways, the occasional giveaways. So pay attention to habsandfilter.net and all our social media accounts. We will have some contests coming up where you can win yourself a free 12 box of Puck Off Lagered Ale cans. There's rules and regulations that you have to meet before you get it. We're not just giving it to anyone. So I want to thank Boxing Rock for being a special partner. For all our other partnerships, go to habsandfilter.net. You'll find them all there. Promo codes, everything. And for our listeners, thank you very much for listening. You guys make this fun. There's plenty of other shows you can listen to as well, like Locked On Canadians and Happy Hour. We have friends in all these shows. We love them all. They're all great. We're just happy that you spend a little bit of time with us. So thank you. And remember, if you're talking about it, so are we.